In, I was at one point the Minister of Information of the Black Panther Party. I had replaced Eldridge Cleaver in that role. I was editing the paper, but while I was the Minister of Information, I was sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag on our office on Parada Street. So I had this title, but nothing that went with the title. You know, it meant something, but it didn't mean, because we had a paramilitary structure. And in our structure, you had a central committee. A central committee represented what we called, in Marxist terms, using communist models of socialist governments in China and Cuba, et cetera. We had a central committee. And even within that, you had a Politburo. And the central committee ran and governed the party. And the party was not a membership organization you joined, but it was not a mass organization, rather. And you joined for life, and you joined to give your life. It was quite a thing to talk about that, and I could talk about that later. But the question of the chair. And so as the Minister of Information, that meant I ran the Information Ministry, which means that all those newspapers went out with my approval. And everything we put out, propaganda, all of our press conferences and everything, it was under my little operation. And I got that job mostly because I was one of the people that could really read and write, you know, that had skills, and I had moved up. You know, we wanted more intellectuals, and we got some. We had David Du Bois, for example, the son of W.B. Du Bois, as our editor at one time of our newspaper. When he became the editor, I was the chairman, and so he was the editor of the paper under my authority. And that meant that at that time, I was the highest leader in the highest leadership position in the party. Huey Newton was always the Minister of Defense, which was the highest office, but he was in Cuba. He had gone to Cuba because he was charged with the shooting of someone, and it was two violent acts, and he ran into exile in Cuba in 1974. And I was sort of ordained because we didn't have a vote. You know, we didn't have time for voting. All votes are not equal anyway. So Huey left me in the position to basically keep the party together, because we had brought everybody from all the chapters into Oakland because we wanted to make Oakland a base of revolution in the United States of America. And so the question is, what did we have to do to make Oakland a base of revolution in the United States of America? Because there was no blueprint. Cuba didn't offer one, China didn't offer one. We worked very closely with ZANU in Zimbabwe in the struggle against the South Africans. We worked very closely with Frelimo in Mozambique, but none of these really had an example of what we could do, because these are different situations. This is the empire, and we had to deal with what we were dealing with inside the empire, which is totally different from colonialism or peasant struggles or industrial struggles in Russia or the struggles of people in Cuba. So we didn't have much of a blueprint. So we had to analyze where we were and what we could win. Could we win an out-and-out battle with the police? No, we could not. So we had to come to grips with that. It was hard. Some people thought, well, now we have these guns, we're just going to go out here and take over the whole country, you know, as though there were no LAPD, California Police Department, or, you know, state police and sheriff's department and National Guard, Coast Guard, FBI, CIA, United States Army, Navy, Air Force, CIA, FBI, ATF. I mean, this country is strapped. You're not going up against this like that. So if you don't assess your enemy, we all read The Art of War, you have to know your enemy, right? In order for you to know your enemy, because you can't win if you don't know how to win. So we had to study how to win. And so among the things that we did before Huey left is Bobby Seale and I ran for public office, and that was a decision of the party. This wasn't like, oh, we just said, oh, we're going to run. No. And so Bobby ran for mayor, and I ran for city council. And we got more than 45% of the vote. But that was enough to show black people, which were still a large percentage, 49, 50% of the Oakland population, that we had never had a black mayor, but we could have one. And all they had to do was vote. And we pulled people out like you can't believe to vote. We pulled people from the dope houses, from the projects. You know, we took people to cash their welfare check. We would take them to the welfare office and take them to the check cashing place if they vote. So we did all kinds of things to organize the black vote, and we did. And we turned that vote out, and it was fabulous. And then that was before that. And then Bobby Seale left the party, and I took over in the office of the chairman. And then Huey Newton left under these really ridiculous circumstances. And the biggest challenge I think I had was just consolidating everyone around my leadership. And so, as you know, Beverly, I opened my book with saying I have all the guns and all the money, I can withstand challenge, and I could, and I meant that very literally. I did have all the guns behind me. I had all the people that were wielding guns, that were the security people. and anything else. And I had a hold of the bank accounts. We had about 15 bank accounts. So after that, it's a wrap. You know, when people charged Winnie Mandela, and it was so shameful to me the way Winnie Mandela was put on trial with all these South African racist barbarians. They're going to say, we're going to have peace and whatever it is. They will have, what is it, truth and reconciliation, and putting Winnie Mandela on trial. And so she had this football club. And I said, any sister worth her salt got a football club, because I damn sure had one. So you don't walk around here talking too crazy unless you can deliver consequences. And so I was able to consolidate the forces of the Black Panther Party and our resources, and we had a lot of resources. We had a lot of guns, we had a lot of people that were willing to use them, and we had a lot of money, and we had a lot of property. And so I consolidated that. I ran for office the second time, and when I ran that time, I took 49% of the vote, and I was able to say, all right, we have a base here, and all we want to do now is seize the Port of Oakland. Well, the Port of Oakland was the second largest port in the world at the time. And I still want to seize the Port of Oakland. Why? Because it's pumping out billions of dollars every year. Because there's trade issues and there's all kinds of global issues. This is not one little universe. As a matter of fact, that section of our newspaper that we talked about this was called Oakland and the World. And as a matter of fact, my new nonprofit is called Oakland and the World. So our goal was to really seriously create a base, and how do we do it? So when I lost the election, but only by less than 1% percentage point, I realized that I had the support on our side of every single labor union, blacks, Latinos, and everybody who was basically poor and oppressed in Oakland. And so the Republicans who were white had the hills. And so we had a negotiating tool for the first time. And I wielded that tool like a knife. And I talked to the powers that be. A guy named Robert Shedley was the president of the Clorox company, and they started this consortium where they were going to take over Oakland. And I said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to work something out. I want all the jobs in the city center, 10,000 jobs that they were going to build. And if I don't get them, then you won't have a building to have a city center in. And I could say that with such authority, and almost everybody understood that I was serious. And so we began to work things out of how we were going to coexist with the capitalists who were in the hills and the Republicans, and how the black masses and Latino masses were going to exist there, and how we could, at some point, we would come to a moment of conflict. And I would always like to think we were going to win because we had the big numbers. And Shedley and I had an understanding there, and the city had an understanding. It was the most magnificent time, because people thought it was a moment of reform when it was a moment of a major step toward creating a revolutionary base in the city of Oakland, and creating Oakland as a base for revolution. And why was this important, and what did we mean? We meant revolution in the sense that a complete overthrow of the existing scheme, a complete reinstitution and reconstitution of the social construct, so that everyone had food, an egalitarian distribution where nobody was hungry, nobody was without housing, nobody was without education. And we meant that. We had our school that we ran. We had our club. We had everything that we did. We meant to control our destiny, at least within that first framework, and create a model where people around the country being able to say, well, damn, if they did that in Oakland, I want to do that in Detroit. I want to do that in Chicago. And that was what we did.
Would you say just a little bit about the clinics and the breakfast programs?
Well, you know, it wasn't hard. These are critical analyses that you make. You know, it's like, our children are not doing well in school. Well, gee, hunger will drive you. Like, if you're hungry here tonight, this is probably not going to be that interesting. You might be thinking about what you're getting ready to eat. You know what I'm saying? If I could just get my hands on something right now, you know, a cookie. So if you're hungry, it is difficult to think. And among the many problems that black children face and poor children face was hunger. And so we just said, well, we should feed our children before they go to school. And the question was, people ask me all the time, and I like to speak frankly about this, well, how did you start the breakfast program? Well, in our case in Los Angeles, I came out of the Southern California chapter of the party, and the Central Committee already existed, so they would say, you have to have a breakfast program up in 1 month. We'd be like, well, we didn't say, how will we do it? Where will we get the money? What are we supposed to do? We just said, okay. And we set about trying to do that. Everybody had assignments. We went to a variety of churches, the black churches. Oh, we don't want no Black Panthers up in here. No, 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 no. Don't bring them guns down. No, no, no. And so in our case in LA, I love to tell this story. We were desperate to find. We sat through church services like for 3 hours. You know these churches where they lock the door, you're gonna be there all day? And we were like, okay, so we have this one thing. Can we use your kitchen and your facility in the morning? Only, I think it's 6 to 9, and we'll be out, everything will be clean. You're not using it, what's the difference? No, no, no. Finally, there was somebody came up with, we could have a breakfast program in a Seventh-day Adventist church. And we were like, oh, this is great. They said, please be our guest. We welcome you, except you do realize we don't eat meat. We're like, it's the black community, 1969. What you mean you don't eat meat? Breakfast is meat. You know, breakfast is ham. Breakfast is sausage. Breakfast ain't even meat, it's pork. You know? What are we going to do? And there's a sister named Joan Kelly, and she said, somewhere she came up with something new called a veggie burger. We'd never heard of this is 69, come on, folks. And it was like this roll, like a sausage roll, and you could just cut it up. Now, I can't cook anything, but the people that were cooking in that program, they cut it up, they put onions and peppers and just everything. They try to make it like sausage, right? So fry it up and everything. And the kids in the beginning were like, what is this? This ain't no... and we were like, oh, wait a minute. This is meat, eat it. It's sausage, eat it. They'd be like confused, but you know, if you're hungry, after a while, you start imagining. You know how your mother tell you to eat something? It was good. So you just started eating. And the kids bought into veggie burgers. It was a fabulous moment, but that's how we did it. And the way we got the food was we would go to the big store. We came down so hard on Safeway, I almost felt sorry for Safeway. You could donate or you don't have to donate, but it's gonna get rough. You know, there's two ways. Somebody said, I believe it was Andy Young once said that the Black Panthers extorted black businessmen. And you know, it's like one man's extortion is another man's freedom fighter. You know, you can look at it any way you want to. But if you're in the hood, if you lived around Central where our breakfast program was, and you had a little store, you're gonna probably make a donation every week and actually be very grateful for the donation. And look at it like this, we were gonna offer you the opportunity to make sure nobody robbed your store. And we had a lot of perks to giving us this food.
You also got food from the UCLA cafeteria.
Yes, we did. We went up to the cafeteria. Wow, I'm amazed you remember that. We were at UCLA and we went to the cafeteria, and you know how all of us privileged Negroes can get into a school like UCLA. There wasn't a whole lot of black people there then or now, just so you don't get it twisted. You know how people say, I'm not here on affirmative action. Oh, no, you're here on affirmative action because I can tell you about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, and I can tell you about Fannie Lou Hamer taking one in the eye. That's why you're here. You ain't here because you're smart. You're here because we fought. Don't get it twisted. So we went to UCLA, and we were students there for about, 5 minutes. But anyway, we were there organizing, and we saw this dormitory had all this food, and the newly arrived blacks would say, I don't want that, what is that? And they would get 2 and 3 hamburgers from the little cafeteria steam tables and wouldn't even eat it. You know, they were just so overwhelmed with the richness. And so we just went up to UCLA and said, what are you going to do with all this food? Are you going to throw it out? And they said, yeah, we have to throw it out. We can't. We said, give it to us. And they said, okay. And that's what they did. And we just went up there and got it. And we gave it back to the community. We just went with foil pans. And, it really ain't that complicated if you want to do a thing. You know what I mean? But you do have to have a mind to do it. And the will and the drive and the ability to say, okay, I'm willing to throw down for this. And we just went up there and collected the foods. And then by that, we'd collect that dormitory. We reheat that stuff. And next day, we have free dinner. Then we have free breakfast and everything else. Then we took all their cans and we took everything out. And some stuff we just took, It wasn't quite in the donation.
Borrowed.
It wasn't quite in the donation. We used to call that liberating at that day. So, but these programs were important because one of the things they did was 2 things. One was we called them survival programs because this wasn't the end-all, be-all. This was survival. And we had a slogan that these programs were survival programs pending revolution. Once we controlled our destiny, we wouldn't be begging for food. We wouldn't be begging for health care. We would have our own thing. But until we had our own, we had to survive, because it's hard to get in the struggle talking about, you know, the revolution has come, it's time to pick up the gun, and you out here hungry with no place to live, with no health care. You got a problem. But the community loved us for that. People today will tell me in Oakland, "Here, child, you remember I got that bag of groceries and they had a chicken in that bag." People remember that because we served the people body and soul. That was our slogan. No part-time revolutionaries. And all of these things was the dedication, and to show the people that we're here, we're in the community, you're not going to go hungry because you have a right to eat. You're not going to be without any medical care. And how do we do the clinics? We would go up to the UCLAs or whatever, teaching hospitals there were, and go get some interns, and they would agree to give us an hour here, hour there, and after a while we had a fully staffed clinic. And most of the time with the clinics, at least in LA, we couldn't find a clinic, so we just moved in on a vacant slumlord's property. What was he going to do? Charge us rent, come down and put us out? So we just moved in on a storefront, cleaned it up, got some electricity, you know, that orange cord that goes through the hood there. Got some electricity. And then and we did that. So I have my other famous Joan Kelly story about our clinics. Can I tell that?
Yeah.
One? So here's my favorite story. Joan was like, she was like Ethel to my Lucy. I definitely was Lucy, so don't get it twisted. And we were like Black Panther Ethel and Black Panther Lucy. So whenever we would want supplies for the clinic in LA, we would say, well, we're going to go up to the hospital, the county hospital, where you're going to be treated bad and wait 4 hours, but they would put you in a room by yourself. It was like 80,000 things of bandages and alcohol. Okay, I'll be waiting. You're going to treat me bad, I'm going to flip it around, okay? So when we walked out that day, Joan and I saw a wheelchair, and I said, you know what? We need a wheelchair in the clinic. We do. It looked clinically. We looked clinicky, you know? So I said, Joan, get in the wheelchair. I'm going to wheel you out to the car. And she's like, why do I? I said, you know you're Ethel. I thought of it. You get in the wheelchair. And if you know LA County Hospital is up on a hill, and then parking lots down here, and I'm just going down. Like, I'm now feeling like the administrator that takes the person to the car, you know that? And I'm really into my role, and I take her all the way down, and somehow, I don't know what happened, but I made a mistake, and she flipped out into some bushes. And so I grabbed her, and I said, and people were like coming around. Now we brought attention to ourselves. And I said, are you all right, ma'am? Please let me help you up. And people would come around, and I said, no, please, give her air. And so we get to the car, and so we go, okay, we'll just push the wheelchair together, you know, and put it in the car. And so we just go, and it didn't do anything. It's like, what's that? Where's that little lever or something? And now it's like we're going to get it. It's a two-door car. The seat's in the back, but it's a two-door, the GTO, Pontiac GTO. That thing would hit 80 in one. I'm one of the best drivers I know. Once in my life, I've outrun the LAPD. That's right, with that Pontiac. So we can't put it in the car. I said, Joan, get in the back. We pushed it in there, and the wheels were hanging out the back. She was in the back holding it. And we rolled it back home, back to the clinic on Central Avenue. And we were just so proud. You know, people could be wheeled back to their homes and everything. Now, I know people say, well, that is illegal. And so as though seizing a country by murdering all of the Powhatan Confederacy was legal. As though enslaving African people for 250 years made sense. And that was legal because slavery was legal, of course, right? So we're no respect any more than the law said they had no respect for the rights of a black man. I'm no respecter of the laws of this country that has oppressed our people this long.